But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Hebrews 11:6. Have you ever thought about this? Yah wants to stretch you. He wants to stretch your faith. He wants to stretch you, put you in a place where you might not be as comfortable as you want to be. Well, guess what? He wants to do that with you because he wants you in a place where you can't do anything, where you have to rely and trust in him and get to where you're supposed to be, how he sees you, not how you see yourself. Those things that he's called you to be, not what you think you are. But here's the problem. Even physically, think about stretching. How many of you that are over 20, 30, 40, 50, we can go on from there, are as flexible as you once were? Now, if you work out every day and you work those muscles, guess what? You can be. But in general, physically, we're not as flexible as we once were. In fact, as we age, our muscles and joints, and as we grow older, become less and less unless we're working those things out. Every athletic coach always says it's time to stretch. Well, it's time to stretch. It's time to stretch, folks. So you think about this spiritually, it's also time to stretch. As we grow older, over time, we get stuck in our ways and we don't even like to be flexible. If there's anything that we need to know about this walk is we need to be flexible, we need to be teachable, and we need to be ready to change and grow, because if we're the same always, we're stagnant and we're dying. But that's not what we want to be. We want to be a people that's growing. But sometimes that is going to require that you are stretched spiritually and sometimes even physically. It always has to do with our faith. Yah wants to stretch you in your faith. Faith is absolutely central in how we believe and what we believe, because if we don't have faith, then what do we have? We enter into a relationship through Yah. What? Through faith. And then he says that it's impossible to even please him without faith. So faith is a big deal. It's powerful. Faith is powerful. Yeshua said that if we had faith as a grain of mustard seed, that we can pray and see the mountains move and cast into the ocean. When was the last time you saw some mountains move? I wonder how small my faith, or maybe you should put your faith on the list as well, is in that type of comparison. Now, if we think that Yah wants to stretch our faith, maybe we don't even want that, because we know oftentimes that we might face that trial and test, and it's uncomfortable. In fact, when you stretch your muscles, when you haven't been working them out, it's like, oh, that hurts, but yet it's a hurt that feels good if you really are honest with yourself. Oh, but to do it initially, you're like, oh, that's a little bit painful. Spiritually, stretching is the same way. It's not easy. Stretching requires us to push beyond our normal level of comfort. I think about playing the guitar. When you're playing the guitar or a flute or any other instrument, you have muscle memory. But how does that muscle memory come about? It comes about by working those muscles over and over in the same way, and it becomes natural. And then it just happens. You have the ability to play. When you go to the gym, same thing. You've got to have muscle memory. If you're any kind of sport, and it doesn't even have to be sport, it can be something even to make our minds function, like boom, where you have to think on the mark. Those things require practice. They require going over things over and over and over again until it's just a natural thing. Think about learning to type. If for those of you that have, think about how long you typed like A and L, A L, A L, A L, till your fingers got to know where those were and all the other letters. Well, it's the same. Yah wants to stretch you beyond your normal comfort zone, and you need to work out your faith. You need to practice your faith. Yah is faithful, but are we faithful? Yah is faithful. Deuteronomy 32:4 says, a God of faithfulness and without injustice, righteous and upright is he. And then you go over to Deuteronomy 32:4 and another in the NASB, it says, the rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are just, a God of faithfulness and without injustice, righteousness and upright is he. I love that. Well, faithfulness, think about it. Does Moses' next line describe you? Does it describe Yahweh? Is he a Yah truly that's faithful? Well, we know what the word of faith is in Hebrew. It's emunah, which We've got that. But right now we need to remember that Amuna is about an attitude. It's about in conduct, not about some abstract idea that we've all learned of in before in our past times. Yeah, that's not faith in an abstract idea. Attitude, conduct. In other words, Yah wants us to demonstrate. He wants us to demonstrate that faith. He wants God wants also to demonstrate himself to us. But his actions are consistent with his promises. But are we people whose words are consistent, our actions are consistent with our words? It's a question we need to ask. Is that our definition of faithful? Are you a person who does what you say you're going to do? A person who always keeps his promise? Or are you one who promises a lot and does nothing or does very little to keep it up? Perhaps the word Amuna is growing on you and you're walking the pathway with Yah and discovering that you're becoming more and more like him. Hallelujah, if you are someone who is more and more reliable and trustworthy. Well, hopefully, if we are people of Yah, that is what people know us as, reliable and trustworthy. Because what Moshe says about Yah is exactly the same thing as what Yeshua asks of you and he asks of me. Become one who always does what you promise to do. Yeah, this is about stretching your faith, but we need to start with square one, don't we? If we don't even do the little things, how can he get us into the bigger things? It's important to realize that Amuna is not translated by the Greek word aletheia. No, that's truth, but rather by the Greek word pistis, which is Amuna, which is faith in the Greek. It means that the New Testament concept of faith is also about what? Keeping promises. To have faith in Yeshua is to keep his commandments. And once Amuna stands behind pistis, we are under that claim of faith without the actions of the commandments. It's just empty. There is no faith without follow through. There's just not. There's no promise without performance. The separation of faith from your action, honestly, it's heresy. Yah wants us to do what we say we're going to do because he does what he says he's going to do. He keeps his promises. He he keeps his promises, and his promises are always holy, righteous, and upright, and he never fails. Sounds a little bit like love in First Corinthians, because it is love and faith. Now here's the problem. We also go to Mark 9:23 through 24, and it says, and Yeshua said to him, if you can, all things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the boy's father cried out and said, I do believe, but help my unbelief. Is unbelief going to help keep us from stretching ourselves and walking in faith? Yes, but what does that actually mean? What is unbelief? Is it doubting? Is it something else? Well, or maybe it's just the inability to make that leap to the impossible. The impossible. Not really doubting that it could happen, but rather just not seeing how it could happen for you. Sometimes it's a lot easier believing for other people, but when it comes to you, you're like, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe it's just the apparent absence of Yah. You know, when things are falling apart and you desperately want them to get fixed, but no one, especially Yah, shows up, or at least you think he's not showing up because you want him to do exactly what you think he should do. Remember that word, that apistia, or is that Greek word for faith, is about action. It's not thinking. Action. What action are you playing that's showing your faith? Are you stretching yourself? Huh. Well, we probably don't stretch ourselves enough. If you're not uncomfortable, then you're probably not stretching. The Hebrew idea of faith is is reliability, not right answers. Remember that. Don't lose heart. So when you find yourself at wit's end, not knowing what to do, well, you trust and you have faith. That means you have action. That means you do what you say you're going to do. You act on what you say you believe. Don't get discouraged. This guy's discouraged, but you're not supposed to be. The man who came to Yeshua and his disciples, he wanted his son to be well because he had heard and seen and etc. other people healed. But he didn't doubt it. But when it came to his son, he was tottering because, can it really happen to me? He knew healing was available, but that wonder of it all escaped his desire. I wonder, escaped desire? Well, why couldn't it be for me, for us? Guys, I can't tell you how often that happens where we stand out and we talk about faith and we talk about miracle power and we talk about all the things he does, and it's easy to see in other people's lives and it's easy to see the miracles, but when the test comes to us, It's harder to stand. It's harder to be stretched. It's harder to stay on course. It's harder to believe. But isn't that the whole point? You're supposed to believe even when it seems impossible. Stretch your faith. See, that conviction brought him to Yeshua in the first place, and he began to sink in the waters, and saying, I'm doubting, I'm doubting. I'm I'm not I'm not letting that desire to keep going trump everything else. See, Y'all wants you to believe, and he wants to stretch you, but in order to be stretched, you have to go to a place that's beyond your normal, that's not comfortable, a place where it seems impossible, because he is the Yah of the impossible. He is our supernatural miracle worker, way maker kind of Yah, who keeps his promises, whose word did not return void. But he wants us to partner with him in all of this, and that means we must be stretched, and we must believe the impossible, not only for the people down the street and the people in our congregation and those that we hear about, but you've got to believe the impossible for you and your family and those that you love. And it's likely he wants to stretch your faith today. Consider this. God may want you to do something that stretches you, but he may want you to stop doing something which stretches you. Yeah. He may want you to give something that's going to stretch you beyond anything, but he may want you to say something that's going to stretch you, or may want you to be silent. Sometimes silence is harder than speaking. Yeah. And that's going to stretch you. He may want you to give up something, sell something, give something away, buy something. Maybe the ministry needs, I don't know. He may want you to start something new, burst something, but he also may want you to end something that's going to stretch your faith. He may want you to love someone that's unlovable. The chances are Yah likely wants to stretch you in many ways, not just a singular way. Yeah, many ways. So being stretched. It's not comfortable. It may not be what you want, but it really, honestly, if we're going to believe in the God of the impossible, and we are going to live it out and put action, because remember, without the action, there's no faith, then we are going to have to walk in the impossible. It's not easy, but it's not supposed to be, because when we're in that place, that's the end of ourselves, then Yahweh himself is the one who gets the credit, who gets the glory, and is the only way we can accomplish the things we're supposed to. And guess what, folks? He is the only way that you can accomplish what you are supposed to do and become who you were supposed to be stretched and trust in him as you walk in faith and put that doubt behind, because you have the desire to fulfill the purposes for which he's called you.